Hello, this is Julia Child. Welcome to Home Cooking with Master Chefs. Happy cooking and bon appetit. Capellini all'Istriana, named for Chef Lydia's seaside hometown in Italy, has impeccably fresh seafood, tomatoes that taste like tomatoes, and delicate angel hair spaghetti. This is a perfect illustration of how delicious pasta can be with just a few carefully chosen ingredients.
Angel hair pasta with seafood sauce. Capellini all'Istriana.
This lovely dish shows what can happen to tough old greens if you treat 'em right. In Chef Lydia's hands, broccoli di rape has an agreeable bitterness that blends wonderfully with the sweetness of the sausage and the full ripeness of the cheese. A great demonstration of how to cook pasta the real Italian way.
Pasta ears with broccoli di rape and sausages. Orecchiette con broccoli di rape e salsicce.
This is a sumptuous dish, a risotto to dream about. It has a deep, rich mushroom taste and a magnificent creamy texture. This is what risotto is all about.
Risotto with wild mushrooms. Risotto ai funghi selvatici.
A determined fellow like John Birnbaum never does anything halfway. Just catch a glimpse of him as he flies by on his Harley-Davidson, roaring between San Francisco and his new restaurant Catahoula in Calistoga. John began his culinary career by melding his Louisiana background with training under master chefs in New Orleans and in New York. His dishes are sometimes intense and other times delicate, but they're always stunningly original. Sure, you can buy good smoked salmon, but smoking your own is not at all difficult when you have a smoker. Chef Jan's directions make it all so easy.
Home-smoked salmon.
Chef Jan has ideas for eggs other than a plain breakfast. For his tart, he does scramble them, but then he molds them into a sort of cake that he decorates with home-smoked salmon and tops with sour cream and caviar. And that takes scrambled eggs just about as far as they can go.
Smoked salmon with scrambled egg tort.
It's a handsome sight on the dinner table. A whole leg of lamb roasted brown and beautiful under Chef Jan's spicy crust from the land of the bayous. Any host would be proud to stand and carve it for a table of hungry guests.
Louisiana sassafras roasted leg of lamb.
When you want a starchy something to go with grilled or roasted meats, this unusual creation is particularly attractive and delicious. What is salsify? It's a carrot-shaped root vegetable with a pleasantly mild, almost sweet flavor.
Potato salsify pie.
A sweetly refreshing selection of orange, grapefruit, and tangerine segments arranged all together, topped with a tender zabaione sauce, then lightly browned under the broiler. This is certainly a delicious way to end any meal, especially an important one.
Citrus gratin.
Patrick Clark's father, a professional chef, had tried to discourage him from a culinary career. However, Patrick was determined, and he got a Boy Scout merit badge in cooking. His formal training started in New York City's Technical College, where the director encouraged him to study abroad, and that was a revelation to him. He describes his cooking as contemporary American, based on solid French technique, and he's considered one of the leaders of his profession. These charming roulades of salmon with their flecks of cracked black pepper and festive vegetable confetti make an outstanding appetizer or luncheon dish. Chef Patrick combines a Japanese sushi technique with a sauce based on Spanish gazpacho.
This is a fillet of Norwegian salmon, which we'll do an interesting preparation with today. I'm going to remove the pin bones from down the middle of the salmon. And the best way to locate the pin bones is to run your finger down the middle of the fillet of salmon and to uplift them a little bit. And then with a pair of pliers, preferably needle nose, you can go into the salmon, locate the bones and remove them by pulling them out. And once you get used to this, it's pretty easy. Okay, and double check to make sure that the pin bones are gone by running your finger down. As we see, we locate another one. Okay, we got them all out. Now, we're going to split this piece of salmon like a book, and with a very sharp knife, we're going to follow the full length of the salmon and open it up just like a book. And it's best if you can do this in one cut, right through the salmon, about 3/4 of the way through. And when you make your first cut, start to open it up so you see exactly where you are with the knife, so you don't cut all the way through. And we're going to place this on a piece of parchment paper. The salmon needs to be pounded out a little bit, so we need to put a piece of plastic wrap over the top of that. Here we have a meat pounder, or a carpaccio pounder, as we call it at the restaurant. We use it to pound out fish. And you want to get this as even as possible and not too thin. Make sure that the salmon is the perfect thickness so you have a nice even roll. At this point, we remove our plastic, and you can discard that. And we're going to season the salmon with some salt. We use kosher salt and a little fresh pepper. Here we have a little cooked leek julienne, which we're going to spread across the salmon. Now this, you want to put just a thin layer of leek. You don't want to put too much because then it'll be difficult to roll the salmon up. And you're going to roll just like you're rolling a big cigar. Using the parchment paper, you're going to roll and tuck. And roll and remove the parchment as you make your roll. And tuck. Ensure that it's nice and tight. And use the parchment to pull the salmon up. And tuck. And tuck it nice and tight. And you're going to end up like a big salmon sausage. Then you're going to bring it back to you. Tuck the paper nice and tight. And don't be afraid to roll it tight. This is where the salmon is going to get its perfectly round shape. This dish was inspired actually by Japanese sushi type dish. It's going to look like almost like a sushi type salmon. So it has to be nice and tight. Then you're going to twist the ends to make them stay nice and tight. We're going to tie them with a piece of string. And at this point, the salmon has to be placed in the refrigerator and set aside to chill for an hour. And once that's done, we have this. Now we have to remove the ends. And now we have to roll this in the foil. You first brush our foil with a little oil. And we're going to unroll the salmon right onto the foil. The best thing to do is just to place it on the foil in the parchment and unroll it and remove the salmon. Now we're going to lightly coat this with some cracked black pepper. The amount of pepper you put on the salmon is totally up to you. It depends how much pepper you like. Then the same way we did before with the parchment, a nice tight roll. Twist the ends, nice and tight. At this point, the dish can be prepared up to 3 to 4 hours in advance. The sauce we're preparing for the salmon is based on a mayonnaise, and it's actually inspired by the Spanish soup gazpacho. It's going to have those flavors in it, and this is an olive oil based mayonnaise. Okay, to that we're going to add our cucumber juices and our tomato juice, and we'll whisk those into the mayonnaise. Consistency of the sauce should lightly coat the back of a spoon. Okay, we're going to add a little mineral water. It brings out the clarity and the flavor of the tomato juice and the cucumber juice. A little salt, a pinch of cayenne, a little lemon juice, and a couple of drops of red wine vinegar. Okay, then you want to cover this with plastic wrap, put it in the refrigerator for about 2 hours. And now that the salmon is cool enough, long enough to retain its shape, we're going to cook it. In the pan here, we have a little bit of peanut oil. I like to use peanut oil for this operation because it has the high smoke point. We want to get this to about 500, 550 degrees. This is nice and hot. It's just about smoking. I'm going to place the salmon in the pan. And it's very important that you roll it so it gets nice and golden brown on all sides. This is about 2 inches in diameter, about 2.5 inches in diameter. So we're looking about between 3 and 5 minutes to roll this in the hot oil here. We remove the salmon from the pan, put it in a towel to drain, and let it cool to room temperature for about an hour before you slice it. Now we want to adjust the seasoning of our sauce. Take a nice clean spoon and stir in the fresh pepper. We're going to remove our salmon. The 2 end pieces of the salmon are not really going to be usable, so we're going to trim those away. And I also find that the foil facilitates the slicing of the salmon, so you don't want to unroll the whole fillet of salmon. You want to leave it in the foil, and with a very sharp knife, just cut off the end, okay, and put that on the side. You're going to make a slice of about 3/4 of an inch. And with a sawing motion, slice right through the foil and the salmon. You can see the nice vein of leek on the inside and nice medium salmon in the middle there. And then we're going to unroll it. See, it looks just like a little Japanese sushi roll. Place them on the plate, and we're going to take a ladle of our sauce. You can be generous with the sauce. Then we're going to add our little gazpacho garnishes. Diced cucumber first, which has been blanched. Roasted red pepper. And then some chopped chive.
Seared peppered salmon roulade and gazpacho sauce.
Chef Patrick turns a mild-flavored fish, the lowly grouper, into something pungent and interesting to eat. Horseradish and chives give the fish a piquancy that is tamed with a buttery bed of mashed potatoes. Crisp fried leeks make a dramatic finish.
horseradish-crusted grouper, and mashed potatoes.
He looks and cooks like a Texan, but he's originally a Californian. Robert Del Grande got into the restaurant business when he was helping out his wife-to-be at Cafe Annie, a small Houston bistro. He found he loved cooking, and he's been at Cafe Annie ever since. Chef Robert is fascinated with what happens to the flavors of ingredients. He tastes carefully and constantly adjusts for temperatures and textures and nuances of flavor. That's what Chef Robert's good cooking is all about.
Avocado relish.
Chef Robert brings us two Texas staples, beef and chilies, in his recipe for seared filet mignon steaks, braised in a real Texas-style tomato and chili sauce.
Fillets of beef in pasilla chili sauce. Fillets of beef in pasilla chili sauce.
Chef Robert's tender and naturally sweet corn pudding is a very simple, natural formula of milk, grated fresh corn, and cornmeal. But be sure to use stone-ground cornmeal or it won't work. It takes but a few minutes once you've grated the corn.
Fresh corn pudding. Fresh tomato salsa.
Chef Robert is a real expert on chilies, and he put some spicy little fellows to work in a sauce for his tender sea scallops. Nestled on a bed of creamy corn pudding, they make an inviting appetizer or luncheon dish. A larger portion provides a colorful and satisfying main course.
Sea scallops with wild mushrooms in green sauce.
Mary Sue Milliken and Susan Feniger are a lively pair. They began separate careers in the Midwest, then went on to formal training at Chicago's acclaimed Le Perroquet restaurant, then a season in France for each. They teamed up in 1982 at City Cafe in Los Angeles. They next opened the larger City restaurant with a menu of eclectic cuisine based on travels to Thailand and India. They're now focusing their energies on their flamboyant Mexican restaurant, the Border Grill in Santa Monica. This spicy dish starts with bright orange lentils that mellow to the shade of pumpkin when cooked. They're smaller and sweeter than the more familiar brown lentils.
Dal with ginger and garlic.
Chefs Mary Sue and Susan like to set out huge bowls of this hot yellow popcorn as a bar snack. Adjust the seasoning to your own taste, they advise, since it's definitely spicy.
Curry popcorn.
This vegetarian curry gives pleasure to all the senses. The fragrant and colorful cumin, coriander, cardamom, cloves, cayenne, and turmeric tickle the eye and nose. The sound of hot mustard seeds popping greets your ears. Altogether, the taste is sublime.
Spinach and eggplant curry.
Packed into attractive jars, these potent, sweet and spicy tomatoes make lovely holiday presents or house gifts. Chefs Mary Sue and Susan have often served small ramekins of this Indian relish with their vegetarian platters.
Pickled tomatoes.
Lemon ginger tea, the very sound of it is refreshing, and it's especially so when served with highly spiced dishes of Thai and Indian origin.
Lemon ginger tea.
Here is a refreshing Thai salad with 3 kinds of ripe melon dressed in a spicy sauce. This is one of the dishes that inspired Chef Mary Sue on her trip to Bangkok, where melons grow abundantly. A good use for melons, too, remarks Chef Susan, who favors taking them out of the breakfast-only category.
Thai melon salad.
Amy Ferguson Otter is a sparkling young executive chef at the Ritz-Carlton, Mauna Lani on Hawaii. Her cooking blends the cuisine of her native Texas with classic French and that of her adopted Big Island home, where the island elders have shown her how to search for the finest native greens and the freshest thimbleberries. I love to watch her. She's neat, she's precise, she knows just what she's doing. She's a fine teacher and a super chef. On a trip to the mainland, Chef Amy noticed that crab cakes were trendy. Her tasty local version uses ahi, fresh yellowfin tuna, while ulu, Hawaiian breadfruit, takes the place of the usual breadcrumbs or potatoes.
Ahi yellowfin tuna and ulu breadfruit cakes.
Chef Amy's green papaya salad looks like finely shredded coleslaw. It has a fresh, sprightly, lightly spicy taste and can be eaten with almost anything.
Puna green papaya salad with spicy dressing.
Ono is one of the great Hawaiian fish, and this dish is the very essence of the islands. Chef Amy pairs her ono with honeyed bananas that steam in big, fresh green leaves. If you can't find those great big green leaves, you can simply use baked bananas instead.
Wok-seared ono and steamed banana.
In New Orleans, everyone knows the energetic Emeril Lagasse, chef and owner of Emeril's in NOLA. This quintessential New Orleans chef, who hails from Fall River, Massachusetts, has found his spiritual home here. Under the dynamic tutelage of Ella Brennan of the legendary Commander's Palace, Chef Emeril steeped himself in the region's culture. He fished with the fishermen, dug crawfish in the bayou, raised rabbit and quail, and absorbed the essence of this rich cuisine. One of the classic dishes of New Orleans is étouffée, a spicy, rich brown stew that Chef Emeril makes with wonderfully fresh shrimp and crawfish. Its base is the famous New Orleans roux, without which no Louisianian can call himself or herself a cook.
Shrimp étouffée.
When weather turns balmy, Louisianians head outdoors for a crab boil, a meal fit for a small army. Fresh crabs and crawfish, live and kicking, make all the difference. If you don't have them, use lobsters, fish, chicken, or make a vegetarian version with potatoes, artichokes, carrots, and onions.
Louisiana boil.
When Louisianians give you a recipe for bisque, étouffée, or gumbo, they always begin by saying, "First you make a roux." It is simply assumed that you already know how to make this flour-based thickening agent. Chef Emerald offers the unique local version of classic French roux.
Louisiana roux. Creole seasoning. Shrimp stock.
Jean-Louis Paladin blends contemporary and traditional French ideas. He's been doing so since 1979 at his restaurant Jean-Louis at the Watergate in Washington, D.C. When he first arrived here from his native Gascony, he asked himself more than once why he had come. But today he finds his country one of the best food sources in the world, and he says the influence of French chefs has helped trace a little path from their kitchens to ours. This open and exuberant man has a passion for everything he does. Life is fun, he says, and it is. Chef Jean-Louis roasts these duck breasts right in his fireplace. He loves to cook this way. It reminds him of his childhood home in Gascony, where a big pot of soup bubbled over glowing embers.
Fireplace roasted duck breast and sautéed porcini. Oven roasted duck breast and sautéed porcini.
When you get something as wonderful as foie gras, a simple preparation shows it off best. In Chef Jean-Louis' recipe, the tart sweetness of the fruit with the full, deep flavor of the meat makes an absolutely delicious dish.
Foie gras with apples.
Chef Jean-Louis' prune croustade is a fine use for phyllo dough. Layers of this paper-thin dough brushed with melted butter and coated with sugar form a crisp package around the brandy-marinated fruit.
Prune croustade with Armagnac sauce.
The image of strapping Charlie Palmer growing up on a dairy farm in upstate New York and playing football doesn't quite fit in with a picture of him behind a stove in home economics class. But that, in fact, is where his cooking career began. He now owns the fine New York City restaurant Oriole. Early in his career, Chef Charlie traveled regularly to Europe and throughout the United States, visiting restaurants and meeting with chefs, and even now he picks up ideas from everywhere and comes out with really marvelous dishes. These succulent pepper-seared venison steaks with their pleasantly tart and fruity sauce of sun-dried cherries and Pinot Noir wine are a perfect marriage of good, rich flavors. Chef Charlie says you can use the same recipe for beef tenderloin or lamb loin steaks.
Pepper-seared venison with Pinot Noir and cherries.
These big buttery potato chips are thin slices of potato sandwiched together with herbs tucked inside and baked in the oven. Chef Charlie got the idea for them at Maxime's in Paris.
Herb potato maximes.
A tender custard of pureed winter squash makes an attractive contrast to the robust flavors and texture of Chef Charlie's peppered venison steaks.
Butternut squash flan.
Known for spectacular desserts, Chef Charlie offers up a warm chocolate mousse cupcake with a hint of tarragon. He got the idea from a piece of candy, a chocolate ganache with essence of tarragon that he ate in Brussels.
Chocolate tarragon dessert. Chocolate tarragon dessert.
Chef Charlie's Twheels are curvy chocolate sugar cookies that can turn even the humblest dessert into something elegant.
Chocolate Twheels.
Few in the field can match Jacques Pepin for breadth of experience. He's not only a master chef, but a master teacher. Chef Jacques is Dean of Studies at the French Culinary Institute in New York and a highly regarded instructor and lecturer on gastronomy at Boston University. He's written numerous books and countless articles and hosts his own television program. He does it all, and he still finds time to design and paint his own menus. He's a man of boundless and seemingly inexhaustible energy. Puff pastry puffs because of the way it is rolled out and folded, and then rolled and folded again and again until it consists of hundreds of layers of dough sandwiched between hundreds of layers of butter. When baked, the dough puffs up between layers of butter, which makes for wonderfully buttery, flaky, tender eating. Just the making of it teaches anyone the essential feel of pastry doughs.
Puff pastry.
The classic vol au vent is a real construction job involving lots of work. Chef Jacques' ingenious alternative is far easier to make and still worthy of holding the most marvelous concoctions such as his sweetbreads in truffle sauce.
Puff pastry case. Vol au vent.
Chef Jacques' braised sweetbreads are a splendid example of classic French cuisine, something you can rarely enjoy in these times of minimalist cookery and minimum time. His is an elaborate recipe, definitely one for those who enjoy the mechanics of real cooking. This is a marvelous dish with its tender pastry, meltingly subtle sweetbreads, and that meaty, winey, truffly sauce. It's such a rare treat.
Sweetbreads in puff pastry.
This is the modern, classic French way to achieve a fine, strong brown stock, the kind you want to have on hand for a base for homemade soups and sauces, such as the one Chef Jacques adds to his splendid braised sweetbreads.
Strong brown chicken stock.
Here is a recipe from the glorious past, first made famous by the Hotel Plaza Athénée and based on a great Parisian lobster dish of the 1800s, homard à l'américaine. For his version, Chef Jacques steams the lobster briefly, makes the sauce out of the shells, and cooks a cheese soufflé to accompany them.
Lobster soufflé à l'américaine.
A souffle presents the egg at its most magnificent. Master the technique with Chef Jacques' classic, and you'll be ready to tackle endless variations.
Freestanding cheese souffle.
When Michel Richard enters his house, he likes to have it smell of cooking. It makes him feel at home. This may seem odd for a man who spends so much of his time running his flagship restaurant Citrus in Los Angeles and his offspring around the country. Michel can't imagine being anything but a chef, and he's been at it all his life. He's had such success in both his restaurants and pastry shops that people think he must have a secret source of rare and unusual ingredients. Quite the contrary, he simply uses and prides himself on using the best. Chef Michel's spectacular chocolate dome only looks impossibly complicated, but it's not that difficult, and you can make it in stages up to a day in advance.
The chocolate dome. Raspberry sauce.
These meltingly addictive hot chocolate truffles are warm mouthfuls of melted chocolate encased in a sweet, crusty shell. I'd never heard of anything like it before. Such a treat for a few select guests.
Hot chocolate truffles. chocolate truffles.
Baking is not a cushy job, but it's a career that Nancy Silverton has chosen with passion and dedication. And she's become an immense success with her La Brea Bakery in Los Angeles. When Chef Nancy and her husband Mark Peel decided to open their restaurant Campanile with a bakery alongside, she didn't know much about baking bread. But after courses at the famous École de Notre in Paris, she began her own experiments, living and breathing bread 24 hours a day. And the result is some of the best bread in the USA. One of the most important ingredients in bread making is the yeast. Many of Chef Nancy's breads are made with her own special starter, which uses grapes as a fermenting yeast-producing agent. It wants a good 10 days of sitting around before it's ready to go, but it's simple indeed to make, and it will be yours forever, since it can be kept alive indefinitely.
Bread starter. Alternative starter. Julia's yeast batter.
This is the dough formula for making Chef Nancy's very special bread with its sturdy brown crust, its moist and lightly chewy interior, and its real taste and body. It's her special lightly sour starter and the slow rising she gives her dough that makes her bread unique.
Rustic bread dough.
Flat, puffy, roughly rectangular, this easily formed loaf of unusual bread is easy to serve. Just break off a piece and serve it with soups and salads, or take it on a picnic, or stuff it for sandwiches, and it makes absolutely wonderful toast.
Rustic bread.
Chef Nancy's focaccias are like individual 6-inch pizzas, except they're puffy and they're made from her special rustic dough. Even if you're a novice baker, you can't go wrong with them when you top them or split and fill them with a colorful mixture.
Focaccia. Rustic breadsticks.
Chef Nancy's sturdy olive bread has the delicious aroma of real olives, but not overpoweringly so. It's baked without any commercial yeast and is formed in a wicker basket. Olive bread is a favorite among La Brea Bakery's customers, and now we can all make it in our own kitchens.
Olive bread.
Andre Salter has been a steadfast influence at his restaurant Lutece since 1961. His list of awards is longer than his towering toque is high, and under his direction Lutece has been renowned and revered not only in New York but throughout the nation. Although Chef Andre is a traditionalist, he admires creativity, but he thinks we shouldn't forsake hundreds of years of tradition just for the sake of change. When you eat at Lutece, you share not only his famous food, but also a bit of his Alsatian heritage. Say flambe, and everyone around you will look for a great bolt of shooting flames. But the tart flambe is not set afire. It gets its name from a traditional Alsatian method of baking. The tart would be put into the baker's oven when it was being fired, and when the oven flared up, the flames engulfed the tart and browned the top. This recipe works perfectly well in a regular oven, too. It's so light, crisp, oniony, and bacony I could eat a whole one right now.
Tart flambe. Alsatian Flammkuchen.
The baka offa is a hearty meat and potato stew packed in an earthen pot. Alsatian housewives used to send it off to cook in the local baker's oven, the baka offa. When you do it at home, your kitchen fills with the heady aromas of herbs and wine and meat, and a wonderful meal in the making.
Bakeova. Alsatian meat stew.
There's not much to putting this dessert together if you're used to beating eggs and folding. While it's baking, the tart lemon slices seemingly melt to form a filling, and in one good bite you get the tanginess of the lemon, the sweetness of the meringue, and the subtlety of ground almonds.
Lemon almond tart. Tarte citron mama. Lemon almond tart. Tarte citron mama.
Jeremiah Tower has star power. The center of his galaxy is the glamorous Stars restaurant in San Francisco. Early in his career, he became so intrigued with Alice Waters' fledgling Chez Panisse that he took a job there. His introduction of the California regional dinner, based on local produce in its season, was a rousing success and launched him, Alice Waters, in Chez Panisse. Throughout his career, he's donated his talents extensively to charity events. He's a teacher intent on spreading the fresh food philosophy and is considered one of this country's great restaurateurs. Barbecuing on an outdoor grill is certainly a convivial way to cook, and small butterflied chickens are worthy subjects. Chef Jeremiah serves them with a warm salad of fresh young vegetables, making a light, attractive warm-weather meal.
Grilled poussin with vegetable salad. Grilled poussin with vegetable salad.
Poaching is an ancient and lovely way to cook chicken, where the broth flavors the chicken and the chicken flavors the broth, and you get the best of both. Chef Jeremiah has added some flavorful touches, such as a bacon and mushroom stuffing under the skin. It would be entirely fat-free if you left out the bacon, but that's really carrying things too far.
Poached chicken with mushrooms and vegetables.
The real test of a good cook is a perfectly roasted chicken, and Chef Jeremiah could well win the title with his, which he roasts with garlic, lemon, and herbs. What a treat! Bring on the roasted potatoes, bring on the morache.
Casserole roasted chicken with garlic and lemon.
In 1971, when Alice Waters opened her now legendary restaurant Chez Panisse in Berkeley, she made a commitment to serve only the finest and freshest ingredients. No cardboard February tomatoes or tasteless winter strawberries. Before Alice cooks, she grabs a big basket, goes to the farmer's market, and, as she says, she lets the vegetables lead her around. Her tireless efforts to promote freshness, quality, and variety have strongly influenced not only restaurant chefs, but supermarket produce buyers as well. Chef Alice sees the bounty of winter in rich shades of greens. During the slow garden months, she garnishes every plate with a sauté of these tasty treasures, and sometimes surrounds them with nutty, sweet prosciutto.
Prosciutto with warm wilted greens.
Chef Alice's Mediterranean tapenade is a sturdy mixture of olives and anchovies and capers laced together with fragrant olive oil. Hers is really the best I've ever eaten, even better than mine.
Green olive tapenade,
It's a shame that beets are so often neglected because they are a hearty, delicious, and versatile winter vegetable. Those who shun them may well be remembering the tinny taste of canned beets, which bears no resemblance to the lovely flavor of the fresh beet. Just try them with blood oranges in this citrus-dressed salad.
beet, blood orange, walnut, and rocket. Beet, blood orange, walnut, and rocket salad.
This fennel salad is like so much of my favorite food in Italy, where the beauty of the ingredients demands the simplest presentation. The fennel mushrooms and aromatic cheese are sliced paper thin so that they release their subtle flavors and aromas.
Shaved fennel, mushroom, and parmesan salad. Shaved fennel, mushroom, and parmesan salad.
You don't need a lot of fancy equipment to be a good cook. Here's a look at the tools that I particularly like to use in my kitchen. Of course, good knives are essential, and you'll soon see how to choose, use, and take care of them properly. Next come some of my other favorite tools. They just make cooking a little easier. Now, whenever you're ready to move on, just click the arrow above. I admit to being a knife freak. I just love a good knife, and I've got many more than I need. But if you're just starting out, these 6 will suffice for almost anything you'll want to do. Click on each knife to learn more. Click the arrow when you're ready to go on. Your knives will be good to you if you're good to them. That means storing and sharpening properly, and never put them in the dishwasher. Click on one of these topics to learn what I've learned about knives. The best way to learn about using knives is to watch some of our experts. And then practice on your own. Click on each of these chefs to see the proficiency that practice has brought to them. For just about every task in cooking, someone has invented a tool to make it easier. But you don't need every gadget that comes along. Now, I think these are worthwhile. Click on each one to learn more about it. Now, on to some recipes that give you a chance to practice. Click on each recipe to select it. If you go to a recipe or lesson and then want to rejoin my tour, just click the button labeled Back and I'll be waiting for you. This is the end of my tour of knives and tools. To visit another part of the kitchen, please choose another tour.
Dilled salmon. Gravlax. Almond wafers. Tuiles. Beef stew in red wine with onions and mushrooms. Bœuf bourguignon. Boston lettuce salad. Caramel-crowned steam-baked apples. Caramel-crowned steam-baked apples. Caramel custard. Caramel-crowned steam-baked apples. Caramel-crowned steam-baked apples. Caramel custard. Cream of chicken soup with vegetables. Custard sauce. Crème anglaise. Custard sauce. Crème anglaise. Dilled salmon. Gravlax. French onion soup gratinée. Fresh lemon sherbet. Fresh lemon sherbet. Garlic soup. Ahí go buido. New England fresh fish chowder. Oysters broiled in garlic butter. Provençal vegetable soup. Roast leg of lamb with seasoned mustard coating. Rock Cornish hens roasted in wine. Sautéed chicken piperade. Shrimp persillade. Shrimp persillade. Spice bread. Pan d'épices. Stovetop potatoes Anna. Stovetop potatoes Anna. Stuffed tomatoes Provençal. Stuffed tomatoes Provençal.
I love good wine, both to drink and to cook with. I think good wine is essential to good eating. Don't be put off by the wine snobs. You don't need to know a great deal to start tasting and serving wine with confidence. Let's take a look at some wines, some glasses, and how to open, pour, and toast. Whenever you're ready to move on, just click the arrow above. When it comes to choosing a wine, here are some of my favorites. When you click on each, you'll learn some basic guidelines to help you make your own selections. Just click on the arrow when you're ready to continue. Now what about wine glasses? Some people think each type of wine should be served in its own special type of glass, and that's fine for them, but who has room enough to store that many wine glasses? Just click to select a glass and learn about it. When it comes to opening wine, everyone seems to have a favorite way to do it. What you want to use is the opener that works best for you. Click these to learn how they're supposed to work and which one I like. Now let's pour some wine. Pouring correctly will prevent the horror of red wine drips on the white tablecloth. And if you're going to toast, you might as well do that right, too. Select each of these topics to see how. Bon appétit! Wine is a wonderful ingredient to cook with, too. It's an easy way to lend delicious flavor to your food. The only guideline? Use a good wine, one that you... You don't need a lot of... For now, some ingredients are real staples in my kitchen, things I just wouldn't be without. For instance, very fresh eggs, the fine olive oils and walnut oils that add such good flavor, and my favorite herbs and spices. I'll tell you how I choose them and what you should look for when you shop. Eggs come in different sizes and colors, but don't let that confuse you. Most important is to make sure you're buying eggs that are really fresh. Just click the topics here to learn what a smart shopper and cook should know. And don't forget to click the arrow when you want to continue. Some of my favorite ways to enjoy eggs are indeed the simplest preparations. Egg dishes don't have to be fancy to be delicious. Inside each of these eggs, you'd find my advice on the best ways to get good results in short order. Inside of a recipe, eggs... Here is another staple in my pantry. Olive oils and other oils are popular these days. All of our chefs have their own favorites for salads and for cooking. There are a lot of choices, and the language on the labels can be very puzzling. Which oil should you use when? Let your taste be your guide. And when you're ready to put clarified butter or a fine, fresh oil to work, try one of these recipes. Click on each to get started, and if you decide to go to a recipe or lesson then want to come back to this tour, just click the button labeled Back. I always keep a supply of herbs and spices on hand. Tarragon, rosemary, thyme, cloves, cinnamon. I'll combine my spices, but I'm not for putting a whole lot of herbs in together. I think they kill each other off. To learn how I like to use the seasonings pictured here, go ahead and click each one. Here are some recipes that make some ingredients in. Here is another staple in my pantry. Olive oils and other oils are popular these days. All of our chefs have their own favorites for salads and for cooking. There are a lot of choices, and the language on the labels can be very puzzling. Which oil should you use when? For some answers, just click on the picture. Here are some recipes that make particularly good use of my favorite seasonings. Don't just dump them in. Add a bit at a time and taste constantly as you go. That's a tip from all the great chefs. You could click each recipe to select it. If you go to a recipe or lesson then want to rejoin me in the pantry, just click the button labeled Back. This is the end of my pantry visit. To see another part of the kitchen, please choose another tour. Serving a wonderful meal is one of the nicest things you can do for your family and friends. And I don't waste a minute worrying over fancy crystal and 12 dozen double damask dinner napkins. I like to use fairly simple things, some that have been in my family a while. They're the kinds of platters and utensils that will take some wear and still look good. When you're ready to see more of what I use to entertain, be sure to click the arrow above. I don't use anything that I have to worry about too much. All of these pieces have qualities that earn their place on the sideboard again and again. Click on each item to learn about it, and don't forget to go to the arrow when you're ready to continue the tour. When it comes to presenting a dish, I want the food to look like food, not like a formal Japanese flower garden. Always think about how the food will look on the plate, what different foods will look like next to each other, and what kinds of garnishes make sense without being fussy. Click on each dish to learn more about the way I like to do things. If any of these dishes look like something you'd like to try, you can find the details by selecting the recipe. If you look over a recipe, then want to return to this tour, click the button labeled Back. We're at the end of this tour, but you may certainly select another one to visit a different part of the kitchen. I have hundreds of pots and pans, it seems to me. Little tiny frying pans that are just for a single fried egg. Lots of French copper ones in all shapes and sizes. Stew pots, skillets, saucepans. Well, you name it, I got it. But the truth is, you can do an awful lot of good cooking with just a few. I'll show you the ones I use over and over and tell you why I like them so much. To continue on this tour, just remember to click the arrow above. Let's look at the basics. I think this group should be the starter for any cook. If you buy good, solid equipment and take care of it, it should last practically forever, at least as long as my faithful 50-year-old restaurant stove. Now click on each pot or pan when you want to know more about it. Beyond the basics, I'd buy these pieces next if I were stocking up from scratch. To learn more about them, just click to explore this stovetop group also. You'll soon come to have your own favorites. And here are some recipes that make great use of the cookware you've just seen. If you look into one of the recipes or lessons, then want to return to my tour, be sure to click the button labeled Back. This is now the end of my stovetop tour. Select a different tour if you'd like to visit another area of the kitchen. Now, what